Welcome, everyone, to the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. I am super excited to have Torie, HolyCity Mystic, who is an astrologer, talking all about Yods, which is such a unique facet about astrology that I recently discovered. And I just completely consumed all of her YouTube channel videos on it. And I love the way that she shares about it. So I'm super excited for you to be here, Torie. Thank you. And for our community to get into it today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
A question I ask all of my guests, because I think it's so unique, our relationship with the divine feminine and how we can express that. How are you currently connected to your divine feminine essence?
So when you first sent me that question, I was just like, what do people usually answer her? And so I went on all your old interviews and stuff like that. And I love everybody's answers. Like they're so great about like getting quiet and checking in and everything like that. I don't have that. My main ways of connecting to that are creativity and celebration.
Mm.
I I have a moon, my natal moon is actually in my fifth house, so I can't help but create. Like I just all the time I'm either making toys or making clothes or writing something or something like that. So that's usually my main thing. And then just celebration. Like I get little kid happy about stuff, unapologetically so. And yeah.
Wow, I love that so much. And yeah, I think creativity is such a, I mean, there's so many different facets to the feminine energy, but seeing you kind of express it in this, I've never heard celebration before either, which is such a great feminine quality to have. I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more too. Like, what are the ways in which you celebrate? Because that's actually a reminder that I often have to give the women in my community, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs. As you know, it's like a journey with it. You have to constantly be like celebrating the little wins that come your way. So, yeah, how do you celebrate yourself?
Um, I mean, I feel like we all tend to forget how much privilege we have just in different ways. You know, you wake up and you can afford the house over your head and stuff like that. And I'm faced with that every single day as a social worker. And so I see situations over and over again where I just realize how privileged that I am. And I actually also have lupus. And so there were times in my life where I was bedridden. I was not able to do the work that I do. And so it's just like every single day, I'm like, I don't have pain right now. I am able to get up. I have $5 to give my kid to go to school so that he can buy a fun snack today. You know, it's like all that stuff. And so I feel like really seeing the other end of, not really realizing how much privilege you had before it was taken away. And then now being able to really sink into joy and all that stuff with that.
That is so beautiful. I don't want to add anything else to that. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to go all into Yods. This was something that was brought up to me from an intuitive, and then I just like went down the rabbit hole. It's kind of my vibe of diving into things is to go head first. So can you explain to our audience what a Yod is and what this configuration means?
Sure, for sure. So, a yod is what is known as a finger of God, and it is two quincunxes and then a sextile at the bottom. So you're going to have 3 points in your chart. Some astrologers like to get really picky with how they decide what counts and what doesn't count. I have found doing readings and stuff like that, most things tend to count. Like the holder of the chart actually does feel it as a yod, but it is a destiny point. It's usually people who have them in their chart feel like they have some kind of divine mission that they're here to carry out. And they also, there comes this almost anxiety or existential crisis with it, where it's like, am I wasting my time? Am I not able to fulfill this? Am I the right person to fulfill this? All that stuff kind of goes with it. But typically, these are people who are borderline magical because there is so much of that divine wisdom already within them. And the reason why there's so much anxiety that comes with the yod is because they know what it is. They know there's this bigger mission that they're here to be a part of.
Mm. That makes so much sense because it's like when you have the vision, and I think intuitives can really feel this a lot. It's like when you can see the future in that inner knowingness and that longingness for it. And then when your current reality isn't reflecting that, that is where like all the self-doubt and like turmoil happens because you're like, why is my reality not reflecting like the visions and the direction that I'm going into? So,
Mhm.
can you talk about like some of the aspects that come with having a yod? Like, why is there so much like anxiety and kind of strife in getting there? Is there a certain even time length that or a trajectory of when people are able to kind of make that shift and step into that vision and kind of not that we could ever get past turmoil, it's always going to show up in different cycles, but you know what I mean, like kind of doing a lot of the cleanup work.
For sure, yeah. So I did have one teacher who was talking about the maturity rate of a yod, and he said it's usually 50. When you reach 50 years old, that's when you tend to have your
Woo!
yod maturing. Everybody, don't hold your breath. Um, but I've seen so many people successfully feeling like they're living out what they came here to do in their early 20s. You know, it really does have to do with trusting yourself and knowing that even if you're taking small steps and you don't feel like they're making any kind of ripple effect, they are. And, you know, so many people who have come to me, I know for a fact that there are people in their life who think of them every single day who they will never be able to pick out of a lineup. It's like, you know, when you have this point in your chart, this configuration in your chart, you are here for a higher mission. It's not your yod, it's the universe's yod. You're just the bearer of it, you're just the person carrying it out. And so, you know, there is a lot of anxiety that comes with that because it's like, am I doing it right? You know, am I doing the right thing? But oftentimes you're just living your life and everybody gets affected in the way that they're supposed to because you're just living the best life you can.
Mm. How did you come to realize that you had a yod, and then how did that kind of affect your relationship with astrology and your life?
Um, so I'm trying to think of her name. Anne Ortley. It was Anne Ortley was doing a podcast on, I think it was Astrology Hub or something. And I was just listening to her, and it was like a weekly weather. She was just, you know, talking about what kind of patterns we were going to see coming up. And she said, there's a yod, there's going to be a finger of God in the sky, which is a yod. And, you know, and I think it was Amanda is the host of that podcast. And she was saying, she's like, you know, for our listeners, what is that? And so she kind of described the math of it, which is, you know, what I just did. And then she said, yeah, it's really amazing to see the lives of people who have yods in their charts, in their birth chart. And that was all she said. And I was like, well, what the heck is that? You know, what does that look like? And so there was this free conference class that was up at the time. This was years and years ago, um, where the gentleman went down. I think it was like a 3 hour seminar or something like that, where he went down and explained just, you know, what the apex was, what the bases would act like, all that different, all those different angles of it. And I realized I actually had three in my chart that were
Wow.
within a 2 degree orb. So very, very tight yods. And, you know, I have always resonated, like astrology has always very much resonated with me, and I felt very connected to it. But as soon as I found the yods in my chart, I felt like all my life made sense. Like it wasn't just me anymore. It wasn't just like, okay, well, you know, this is your sun and this is your moon and this is how they might play out or something like that. Suddenly there was this configuration which just described so much. And, you know, one of the main things that I see with people with yods in their charts is just believing that they're a mistake, you know, believing that they are here almost by accident, or, you know, there's so much wrong with them, they can't possibly get to where they want to go and all this stuff. And so, since that's such a common theme that comes up, they work twice as hard to be better, to connect with others, you know, all of those things. And so it's like, you know, even though everybody else sees them as perfectly normal, they're working so hard to make up ground that they never lost. They just believe they did.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's so interesting because like when I think about all these different like aspects there are to the chart, like it's giving Saturn a return. Like it reminds me a lot of like you really get like put through the ringer and the obstacles come and it seems like they're endless and you're just like, oh my God. But when you get, it's not that blessings come after your Saturn return because Saturn has shifted its sign. It's that the blessings come because you're now strong enough to overcome any obstacle that's going to come your way. It like prepares you for that. Like true success is not just like it being handed to you. Like it really is that like worth and work to it. So if you're expecting to have this like greater vision and dharma that you're going towards, like of course, like it's just we live in a world of polarity. Like of course you're going to have to really dig through the depths for it in order to experience like that opposition on the other side. So
Mhm.
I know there's so many different aspects to the yod. I think going and giving an example could be a really good way to kind of start and like talk about it in these ways. Just in case people want to pull up their chart and kind of like do a side by side, how can someone find if they have a yod in their chart?
So if you are using astro.com, which is free software you can get, I think you can actually use it without signing up for it, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
free. You
like
can absolutely sign up for it. Um, what you want to do is you want to go, hang on, let me pull it up so that I can tell you very specifically. Um, go on the extended chart selection and you're going to go down to display calculations and options. And you're going to want to go all the way over to aspects and click to all objects and then show chart. And it is going to show you um, little green like dotted lines. Those are going to be your quincunxes. And then it's going to show you a shorter blue line, which is your sextile. The longer blue line is going to be the trine. And so if you have a triangle where it is those dotted green lines, two of them together pointing at one point in your chart, and then that sextile, that shorter blue line at the bottom, that is a yod.
and correct me if I'm wrong, quincunxes are 150 degrees and the sextile is 60.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, great. So it kind of reminds me of like the Deathly Hollows triangle. Like
Yep.
it's like longer than what a typical triangle or a trine would be. So it's two planets or 2 points, like you'll find when we do my chart, it's the ascendant, that create that 60-degree angle. So you have to look to see like which planets have a sextile. And then from each of those planets, there has to be 150 degrees to a planet. And then can you just briefly talk about orbs and what's like considered within that degree range?
Sure. So, every astrologer is going to say something different. So, some people are like, it's not a true yod unless it's within a 3-degree orb. Rick Levine uses 5 degrees when he does these for people, and I think you probably have a lot of sensitives listening to your podcasts. And so, what I've experienced is if it's a 0-degree orb, so it is extremely tight, it's 15 degrees of each sign, um, then the person can really feel it. And it's almost like their hand is on like a burner in the kitchen. Every step you get away from that burner, you can still feel the heat. And so that's kind of like the orb. So it's like, if you are in a 2-degree orb, you might be standing close to it, but not enough to actually, get burned at all. And so the more sensitive the soul, the wider the orb, and they can still feel it. And so I've talked to some people where it's like an 8-degree orb, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I'm really surprised that they can feel it. But then talking to them, it is absolutely evident in their life. And so it really is up to your discretion whether or not you can feel it. Typically kind of the rule that people go by is 3 degrees max. Again, Rick Levine casts a very wide net. He does 5 degrees. He's very brave when it comes to that. But I never deny anybody's story. So if their experience is that they can feel it at an 8-degree orb, I definitely believe them.
Amazing. Okay, so let's dive into it. I want you to just like intuitively wherever you feel like starting, and then I'll probably like ask questions just to see,
Yeah.
because our community is into astrology, but definitely, needs the details and all that stuff.
Right. Absolutely.